D&D players, what's the most screwed up thing you've ever done in a game? I cut the dick off a bandit, put it on a crossbow bolt and fired it at their leader to send a message, rolled high and ended up firing it down his throat during his monologue. DM gave him choking damage each round he failed the strength check to remove. Edit: I was also allowed to keep the wizard's stick to use for similar purposes later in the campaign. It may have magical abilities. People really shouldn't talk with their mouth full. It was another player in our campaign, but he beat a woman to death with her own baby. It ended up winning him a lot of favor with a particular god that we were trying to become acolytes of. Who the hell was he? Arzhul, god of child murderers and ironic deaths? The average dwarf fortress player. Burned a village for stealing my horse. Raised the village, charred it to a crisp. I didn't just love my horse, I was in love with my horse. AHH Caligula. Caligula just made his horse consul. Catherine was the horse lover. Went through heaven and hell for a side quest which promised to make the main mission easier, since the reward was the answer to any one question we would ask. The idiot orc thief asks, "Do you really know anything?" "Yes." "Now leave." Didn't really make our characters like him more. Your DM is fantastic for sticking to it, though I imagine Salt was had. Well, my character hated that guy anyways, so let's say it didn't make it any better XD. We once burned down an orphanage and took the 50 orphans into our care. Then took them out into a cave in a beast-infested wilderness where we tried to establish a summer camp for them. Perpetually traumatized them unintentionally. Our druid taught a few of them to shapeshift and they got stuck as wolf pups and best cubs. The bard started training them as a crew of child pickpockets. Then we kind of got bored and left them in the cave with an upturned wagon as a front door with a dragon king thief and a tame winter wolf in charge while we went and pursued adventure. If that isn't a revenge-based villain plot hook waiting to happen, I'm not a GM. Hell, I've got a rough idea for how it'd work right after reading your post. I was DMing for the first time, and was doing a one-shot session to set the historical base for my main campaign. One of my players played a half-orc, adopted by halflings, whose family had disappeared as half his village had been replaced by a human city appearing overnight. Soon the party captured a human soldier sent to kill the village elder, who had started to cry after a particularly high-rolled vicious mockery spell by our bard. He was then intimidated severely by the half-orc, but didn't have much information to give, and so when the night settled the half-orc brought him with him to his room. The morning after, he came out with the human chained around his neck, with a ball gag in his mouth, and scared shitless. They followed the human to the fortress where the emperor was placed, and after finding an immovable rod, because climbing the wall is more fun than breaking in on ground level, the half-orc climbed with the poor chap on his back. On top, he was supposed to click the rod and tie a rope around it to making it easy for the rest to follow. Instead, with his low intelligence score, he slammed the rod into the wall, making it fall down. He climbed inside, and with some more low intelligence quick thinking, realized the human was tied to a chain. He then threw the guy down, forgetting he was chained around his neck, and elegantly hung the poor guy. The party, although somewhat disgusted, then proceeded to climb the chain and save the day. One of my players skull raped a prostitute to death. I DM, but I suppose the worst thing I did was let my dwarf warrior fix a dead child's broken nose before letting him know the girl was dead. I doubt anyone is going to see it at this point, but I'll share one. In a game my GF is running, my friend and I are playing brothers Mugai and Steve. Steve is race called a Samsaran, which the way we run it is basically a Time Lord. Mugai is a small frogman called a Gripply. Steve has been killed so many times in a row, he has forgotten basically everything, and thinks he is a Gripply. Muggies is sure Steve is a Gripply too, though is mostly sane. We ended up, accidentally, with a coin from Bahamut's horde. Basically, we were being hunted by all of the dragons, good and bad. We have no fucking clue we have this coin, at any point. Someone finally decides to help us, and leaves us a vaguely worded note that tells us to follow the stars over the Shire and make a proper offering to the Lord of the North. Over the course of the next 3 sessions, what the note said, because we threw it out, changed into we have to attend a halfling meat festival, and finally became we have to save Christmas. So, loaded down with a wagon full of dried meats and cheese, we set off into the wilderness to save Santa. Somehow, as an end result, Steve dated the Krampus for a little while, and Mugai has fallen in love with a teenaged Naga. I also now introduce myself as Steve Gurin, Paladin of Santa Claus. I am a magus. During a jailbreak, because the wizard is a drunk, My half-orc threw a locked evidence chest at a guard with the intent on knocking him out, but the D20 had other plans. I roll a nat 20 and kill the guard with the chest, which also broke, spilling all the confiscated loot on the ground. When life gives you lemons, make lemon grenades. Probably the worst thing was calling a town meeting in the church. It was the biggest building in the town, barring the door and burning it down. The thing that I am most proud of is more complicated. We were playing a Hackmaster 4th edition game. It was an evil campaign with a few evil-leaning neutrals. My sidekick was a human druid. I was playing a half-orc assassin. Despite not being a cleric, I always played the character as a very devout worshipper of Gruamish. We come upon an ancient orc temple to Gruamish, and I decided that it would not do to have the place in disrepair, so my character went about cleaning up and doing repairs. I also turned out we had found an important orcish artifact a few adventures back, which was activated by being placed in the newly cleaned temple. As a result of all this effort, I was made a chosen one, which gave me some spell ability. Well, a first level spell is called Ceremony, which is used to ordain clerics. As orcs were attracted to the temple, I make some clerics. I then used the Combine spell to boost our spell casting abilities. Did I mention the druid sidekick? They have great trap making spells. The rest of the party decided that there was too much orc power growing in the area and the temple needed to be destroyed. Well, it's amazing what you can do with some pretty low level spells when you have time to plan defenses. The entire rest of the party was wiped out when they attempted to attack my temple. It's so satisfying to watch them stumble into traps and ambushes. After playing with them for so many years, I knew exactly the tactics they were going to use, and it was a glorious slaughter. It ended the campaign, but good times.